In this video, I'll show you how I painted up some scout troopers and stormtroopers from Star Wars Legion. Hello everyone. It's been a minute and I'm happy to be back with my next project, painting up this starter box of Star Wars Legion. This is going to be my first go around at painting up an entire army in one sitting, and it'll be kind of an exploratory process for me to figure out how to actually go through that. But this box has everything you need to start playing Star Wars Legion, such as the dice, rules, all the plastic for the minis, and a lot of different languages of the cards required. Altogether, it has Darth Vader, 22 Stormtroopers, and 14 Scout Troopers. For this video though, I will only be focusing on the Scout and the Stormtroopers. I've painted up some of the older Legion models in their soft plastic, but I really like these harder plastic versions more that came out in the second edition of Legion. They're super easy to pop off and clean off with a hobby knife, and then most of them are pretty easy to find push fit areas where you just need a little bit of plastic glue and then pushing it together and holding it for a few seconds. Again, I've also never painted an army like this in this style, so it will be a bit of a process trying to figure out how to paint 36 minis all in one sitting. Once the minis were assembled, I wanted to focus on the bases and kind of zhuzh them up a bit. To do this, I started off by gluing down all the bases to this larger piece of cork board that I had lying around. This will help me build up a nice layer for the base. Then I could start cracking off each base from the cork board. Some of it had some extra on it, some of it had a little bit less. So sometimes I got out my hobby knife to make sure I didn't rip any off of the bases. I knew that I wanted two different types of bases for my stormtroopers and scout troopers. I wanted the stormtroopers to be on like circular, clean, flat, rounded bases where I busted out my Dremel tool and sanded it down a bit. And then my scout troopers, I wanted on a bit ruggier of terrain where they didn't have to be as formal and I could just go in and rip them up a bit. And here's a photo of what that kind of looks like. And I didn't want it to be too flat though, so I came in to add some extra cork and pulling it out to make a couple irregular mounds. For my bases, I'm going for an Endor theme, so I wanted to make a bunch of fallen trees that my troopers could be approaching through. To do this, I had these dried sticks and a pair of pliers in my hands that I broke up into smaller pieces, and I grabbed some modeling tools to dig into the cork to make little recesses that I could shove some of the trees into to get them standing up. But then I also wanted to make some fallen trees, so those weren't as deep with the gouging, but they were more on top. To help the trunks blend into the rest of the terrain, I mixed up some green stuff, and I took out all of the sticks that I had put in originally, and I put some green stuff into the base with some glue. Then I could come in, stick the trees back into place, making sure that they're snugly fit, and then I can come in with a little snaky thing of the green stuff to wrap around the base of the trees, making sure that it's flush with my modeling tools. And then I took another small piece of cork to texture the green stuff to just really make it look like one cohesive scene. The main downside of doing it through this method is that I don't actually know which minis fit on which base, so for each mini, I had to come in and dry fit them to a base. It's not a perfect process, but I eventually figured it out. Some edits needed to be made, but pretty much for each base, I dry fit a couple minis that I thought would fit until I had, for example, this guy, where I thought he really meshed with the base well and I could get to all the areas I needed to paint on the model, until I had my entire battalion assigned to their respected bases. Just to use this one as an example, because it's pretty flat and easy to record, there's a few more basing elements I want to add to each base before I am happy with it, specifically starting with a European mud texture paste from Vallejo. Pretty much I just smeared that over the entirety of the top of all of the bases. But before it's set, I did push in big rocks with a little bit of glue and putting on some epic basing bits plants. For a lot of the plants, it was just a general forest theme. But since Endor was filmed in the Redwoods National Park in California, I made sure to include a lot of ferns specifically. I also wanted a lot of different textural variation on the base, so then I put in a couple layers of watered down white glue and put down some differing levels of ballast from rocky to fine. Then I repeated the process on the other side with some flock. I was aiming for like a mossy tone to complement the rocky tone. Then I took some barbecue smoking chips and glued them down to be some just various stick debris on the ground as well. Now that all of our basing elements have been attached to the base, we can start putting our Imperials onto their stands as well. I did a lot of this off stream as it would take a long time, but each base is unique and has a couple cool stands for each guy. And I've actually never tried to build high up bases like this, so I was really happy with the result. For the painting process, I will be using these 3 guys, this 1 stormtrooper and 2 scouts, to show the majority of the process. Again, just to kind of save time with filming. These guys had a good general summary of most of the parts. There will be a stormtrooper captain also appearing infrequently, but ultimately these are my 3 champions of filming. To start the painting process, I primed everything with a Vallejo black prime. I did this so I would be able to get all the dark recesses of the terrain done. Then we could start building up the tones of the stormtrooper himself. I started with a Monument Hobbies cool gray to help get some of the undertones of the white that we would need later. Then pretty much I approached the white by applying a heavy zenithal from above to the entirety of the mini. Start blocking in the colors of the stormtroopers. I started by applying a Vallejo Gravelord gray to all the blasters and handheld equipment for the troopers. And then I applied a Army Painter Grim Black contrast diluted with a bit of the Speed Paint medium to all the other black areas on the miniatures. One thing I really tried to work on with this army building process was to not be worried about mistakes as I make them. I consider myself a bit of a perfectionist, and when paint doesn't flow exactly how it's supposed to, I kind of get frustrated. But this is kind of my rough draft sketching phase of the project, where the important part is just slab paint all over the model. This face is a great example where it's really blocky and kind of crude, but I'll go back in with the white in the next step and clean it up a bit. All the whites that I've been working on with this project have been bold titanium white from Pro-Acryl. I did a couple versions of the pauldron until I settled on applying a base of Vallejo black gray to the Stormtrooper Captain pauldrons. Next came the wash. This was the part of the project that I was the most happy with how it turned out. I took a Pro-Acryl brown gray wash, diluted down like 10:1, and just smeared it over the entirety of the model. This really helped it become a white, pristine thing to a trooper in a forest. And I think it did genuinely the majority of the heavy lifting for this project. I did make sure to come in and wick off the extra wash where it didn't necessarily need to be, the pauldrons, top of the helmet, chest plate, back, just to make sure that I'm keeping some highlights where they don't need to be removed. For our scout troopers, they're very similar to how we painted the stormtroopers, except they have a lot more black on them. Their entire pants and a lot of their sleeves ended up being black. So again, this was the rough draft phase where I was just trying to put paint on the models as fast as possible, knowing that I can go back in later to clean it up. For all the non-handheld, non-weapon gear, I applied a layer of Vallejo Greasy Black to the entirety of it. I just wanted a bit more visual variety when looking at the models at the tabletop level. Then the scouts got the same exact wash, 10-1, as the stormtroopers. Finally, we can apply a Paynes gray wash from Monument Hobbies to all of the gray and black areas that we've made so far. This really helped it get that Star Wars-y black tint to it. For our Stormtrooper pauldrons, I added a layer of Hot Orange from Vallejo to be the base for the Fire Orange. The Sonic Charge guy also really intrigued me. I liked his model a lot, so I added the orange to him as a bit of an homage to a previous bomb character from Star Wars. Then we could build up the orange fire Vallejo color on top of the existing orange. I didn't have to do this, but I really like this guy, so I added some trims of Monument Hobbies bright neutral gray. Then to bring out the lines of the pauldron, I guided in a layer of the non-diluted brown-gray wash. Then to edge highlight and bring out some details to all the weapons and gear, I applied a Vallejo Game Color Silver to all of it, and where needed, put a light brown wash on top of that in case the highlighting got too out of control or looked too shiny. Then to make sure the orange really had that pop, I added some Sunset Orange into Vallejo Orange Fire to really help highlight the brilliance of the orange. Moving to the bases, we re-enter the rough draft sketching phase of the painting process, starting by painting the trees bone white, painting the rocks stonewall gray, painting all the plants with a fern green, and then the ground with a couple layers of earth tone. All of these paints come from either Vallejo Model Color or Game Color. Just to sketch on some quick details in colors, I then applied a willow bark contrast paint to the trees, a light brown wash to the rocks and the wooden interior of the trees. All the plants got a forest green contrast paint, and then the border of all of the dirt got a muddy ground contrast paint as well. Doing this really just helped us bring out the recessed details of all the basing bits and the intricate holes that are in the terrain. Then I used a Vallejo Cayman green, jabbing it on to create some little irregular grass patches along the lighter brown top of the base. Now that the base has been base colored, I want to blend all the layers together a bit. To do this, I ripped off a piece of sponge and dabbed various layers of green onto the brown, greens, and rocks to help blend them all together to create one comprehensive scene. To do this, I used intermediate green, light green, and then Scorpy green. Again, all from Vallejo. I also wanted to use some of this dirty down moss effect on the rocks. I put it on one of the German cards, put some water into it, mixed it up, and then just applied it where moss would naturally grow. I've had limited success with this, but I still want to try figuring out the secret of the Sphinx with it. I realize at this point, however, our stormtroopers are very clean, so I came in with the earth tone and a sponge again, just to dab on some markings, and then I came in with some brown and dry earth basing pigments from Gamer's Grass. I covered the entirety of the bases with the brown earth color, making sure to hit some of the feet of all the Imperial. And then I came in with a layer of the dry earth on the top, also making sure to blend it in. Just like the Stormtrooper captains, I had two of these rocket troopers that I really couldn't figure out how I wanted to paint them up. So they required a bit of versioning through this process, and I just saved them to the end just to give a brief overview of why they're a little bit different. Pretty much. The rockets got a black-gray base, followed up with some silver highlights, neutral gray edge highlights, and then the lenses got a scarlet red and bloody red from Vallejo. Now that we've got all of our guys painted up, we can paint their rims black and move on to some glamour shots. I would like to take this moment to say thank you to everyone for watching through to the end of this video. I really appreciate it. I would call myself a rookie painter, and I'm just having fun sharing my progress to becoming a better painter. I really enjoy challenging myself with new formulas, new processes, and new challenges. And if you want to stay up to date with my entire hobby making journey, please feel free to leave a like or subscribe. I have multiple projects in development right now, and they'll be coming out soon. But again, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to all of you. I really appreciate it. I hope you all have an excellent week, and I'll see you in the next one. Toodles.